In 2017, Boeing had huge orders for its new 737 MAX, and production was ramping up into 2018, finally reaching 52 airplanes a month with plans to go higher.
What words would you use to describe that factory at that point?
Dangerous, unnecessary, taking unnecessary risk, chaotic.
His name is Ed Pearson, a former Boeing manager who retired in the summer of 2018 after becoming frustrated and alarmed with what he says he saw at Boeing's Renton factory during that ramp-up. He's blowing the whistle on a factory he says where people were, among other things, working 7 days a week. But lots of overtime and work that actually has to be done out of sequence are not new for Boeing, either in Everett or Renton, and are certainly not new to the 737. But there are safeguards. Functional testing is one, where all of the plane's moving parts are run through their paces repeatedly to catch errors. Then Boeing pilots take the planes for their first flights, writing up any problems they find called squawks. The airline gets the jet and do their own checks before you ever set foot on board.
Yeah, I'm Glenn Farley with King TV.
I reached out to Renton workers about the story, and they stuck to the company policy about not talking to the media without authorization. But officially, Boeing did have more to say, putting out this statement, which says in part, as was explained to Mr. Pearson at the time, Boeing senior leadership was aware of production challenges with the 737 line in 2018 and devoted significant attention and resources to addressing those issues and maintaining production quality. Tomorrow, Pearson goes before the House Transportation Committee to talk about the factory environment, one of the same committees that heard from Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg in late October about the two 737 MAX crashes that killed 346 people.
And I question, what is the objective here? Why is that suddenly relevant to the inquiry?
Michel Merluzot is with Air Insight Research, and he's long studied the industry. He says factories can have issues, even for Airbus. But the crashes are tied directly to design changes Boeing made to the automation that helped control the plane's tail, its horizontal stabilizer, not to the factory.
They're not related. They're not one and the same.
In Renton, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.